welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Can you just, to start off, tell me your name and your role?
Well, thank you. So thanks for letting me take part in such an important interview. I'm Matthew Kilgariff, and I work at the Richemont group. It's the Swiss-listed luxury goods group. Mm-hmm. And my role there, I'm the Corporate Social Responsibility Director.
Mm-hmm. And since when have you been in this role?
In this role, 4 years, mm-hmm. and with Richemont, more than 20 years.
Okay. And what in your professional history prepared you for this role?
A very good question. I'll go back to why I joined Richemont more than 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. I was a finance professional, and I was looking for a safe place to be in Switzerland. I had a Swiss girlfriend. 10 years later, I was asked to take a new role, Secretary General, so I retrained. Mm-hmm. And 10 years after that, I was asked to take the sustainability agenda full-time. Mm-hmm. It had been my hobby job, mm-hmm. and I retrained again. So you asked me, how did I prepare for this? Mm-hmm. I think to take a professional approach to each challenge and to retrain, get a qualification, and then use it to give myself the competence and the confidence to do a good job for such a large company.
Mm-hmm. And why did you decide to take on this role? What about sustainability interests you?
Strange question. What doesn't interest me about sustainability? So I live on planet Earth mm-hmm. For a while now, and I see things getting better in some regards and getting worse in other regards. So mm-hmm. I'm interested to understand why is that, mm-hmm. and what can I do with my small role in a small sector. What can I do mm-hmm. to accentuate the positive?
I think 4 years ago, though, a sustainability role wasn't very common. So what specifically, why did Richemont decide that they wanted to have somebody focused on sustainability?
It's a really good question. I was concerned that a job that I managed to do on Fridays was suddenly my Monday to Friday role. Mm-hmm. And I was asked by the board to do that. Mm-hmm. And I thought, is this foresight on the part of the board? Mm-hmm. Are they seeing the future more clearly than me? Or have they just seen enough of me at the boardroom table? Is it time to have a new face and some younger blood? And it may be both of those. Okay. So I said, fine, I'm looking forward to this. But my first action will be to find a course mm-hmm. to bring me the skills that I already had in my previous roles mm-hmm. as a chartered accountant and as a chartered secretary.
So you started sustainability as a hobby job on a Friday. Mm-hmm. So what pushed you to do that? So what was your hobby on a Friday related to sustainability?
I've structured Richemont's sustainability work around codes, clubs, and disclosures. Mm-hmm. And the codes could be environmental code mm-hmm. or travel code or mm-hmm. human rights code. Mm-hmm. And the clubs are pushing Richemont to become a member of clubs like Global Compact mm-hmm. or clubs like the Responsible Jewellery Council, mm-hmm. which is a certification scheme. Mm-hmm. And there are many other clubs which are sometimes specific to a country or a particular material. Mm-hmm. And because of my own professional background, I have a very strong belief in certification. Mm-hmm. Being a member of a club is one thing, but if you really have to work hard to stay a member of that club, mm-hmm. then you really commit mm-hmm. and you have third-party audits and so on. So I really believe in that work because that's my own professional career has been around mm-hmm. that kind of strict understanding of the meaning of words, the meaning of systems, the meaning of numbers. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the UN Global Compact. Mm. Why did you decide that Richemont should partner with the UN Global Compact?
I looked at different clubs, and Global Compact struck me as the right one for an international or a multinational company to be in, because mm-hmm. it was the only club that had that was born across all territories of the world mm-hmm. and had a relatively neutral approach. So a watchmaker or a farmer or a pharmaceutical company could all join on equal terms and share many of the common problems. My supply chain is not just watch components, it's food and water and colleges where people learn how to do things, and paper, and to have a too segregated club membership would be fine for industry topics, but not fine for the whole of the company. And I thought the United Nations Global Compact would provide that common ground for us to join forces with others. So I serve on the board of the Global Compact in Switzerland with Credit Suisse, with Nestlé, and with some smaller companies in the chemicals or other industries as well. And that's a neutral platform where we share the same goals, and that's the same story globally. So Richemont in the UK is participating with Global Compact UK, and in France with Global Compact in France, and in China, and so on.
In terms of partnerships, so clubs, as you said, are belonging to these, associations that allow companies to come together on equal footing. Now, why are partnerships important to further the sustainability agenda?
The essence of partnerships and partners are, if you can do something on your own, you don't really need a partner. If you understand really what you're trying to do needs external long-term relations, then you partner. And a real partner is someone long after the project has finished and the need for that partner has ended, you continue being partners. So that's the sort of partnerships that I like. And Global Compact, again, is that kind of partnership. It's not good for a year or 2 years. It should be good for forever, really. As long as there's Richemont. Richemont's about 30 years old, Global Compact is about 20 years old, and we've been together for nearly 10 years.
Okay.
And I hope long after I've stepped down, the partnership will continue, because it's not about me, it's about the partnership.
Moving back to your role, so what do you do in your day-to-day as head of sustainability at Richemont?
Well, I mentioned, I think, codes, clubs, and disclosure.
Yes.
That's my frame for understanding what I do and what I can achieve. So I develop codes and policy that are used across the whole of the group. And Richemont includes big houses like Cartier or the Net-a-Porter e-commerce business, and then smaller businesses like Gégé Lecoutre, the watch I'm wearing today, and many others. So I establish codes and codes of conduct that will promote responsible business practices. I encourage the companies to use the clubs that matter most to them. And then I bring that together in disclosures, so reporting to all my stakeholders at least once per year on what progress we're making. And those disclosures can be progress against Richemont's own local targets that are specific to us. For example, setting science-based targets for decarbonisation, or more generic topics that investors like to read about, like what is our mix by age or by gender or other dimensions, which are also important to us, but we find it's demanded of us to also report on those standard topics. So what I'm disclosing is what do we do as a group down those two channels, the generic and then the specific. And on the specific, we talk about our own targets, who's responsible for what progress have we made in our transformational plan. We have a 5-year transformational plan. This is part of my code work and disclosure work, is establishing the governance within this big corporation with 35,000 employees, having a light touch system that will enable me to identify progress and problems and solutions.
And what does that look like after 5 years?
You mean at the end of the...
Exactly, at the end of the 5 years. Everyone talks about 2030, but now you've given yourself 5 years. So When did that 5 years start, and where do you hope to be in 5 years?
So it started around January 2020
Okay.
with an approved document, a whole way ahead. We called it our Movement for Better Luxury. That was a play around the word movement, because watches have a watch movement inside, and many people still think of Richemont as a watch business. It's much more than that. It's watches and jewelry and many other things. But people still think of Richemont as watches, especially here in Switzerland. So the Movement for Better Luxury, we called it Better Luxury because we weren't ready yet in our own minds to call it sustainable luxury. That's further down the road. That's positive impacts, that sort of thing. What we wanted to get to by 2025 was something where we could say, yeah, this is better luxury. This is better for everyone involved. Employees, customers, supply chain partners, better across the board. So Movement for Better Luxury. By 2025, I hope we can do one of those before and after pictures that you see when, I don't know, someone started with a body they weren't really that pleased with, but it was okay, it seemed to work, and then after, there we are. This is the body that they really wanted. Maybe not taller, but certainly a happier body and a better luxury. That's where we're going to go. So exactly what it will look like will be revealed in the same way that a fitness program or a diet change will show in the radiance, really, of the radiance of the face. The person knows they've got they've achieved their goals, and we have KPIs for each of our commitments, clear lists of projects, who owns it, what's the target, what's the measurement, and that's part of the governance that I brought using my old professions, finance and governance. I brought that to sustainability at Richemont. I'm not from marketing, and I'm not from human resources. I'm from finance and governance, and those are the tools that I bring to my leading role at Richemont.
I think that's really important because, ESG oftentimes has an image problem, and one of the issues is that people have these lofty goals that they want to achieve and these lofty things that they say, but they don't really quantify the progress that they're making. So your finance role and this whole aspect of KPIs and quantification, I think that will serve you quite well.
I've not had many conversations about cost, but I think it's going to come. When I was preparing the science-based targets process for Richemont and persuading people to sign up to the group commitments so that we would have a holistic commitment for the whole group, I used cost as a warning signal. I said, I suspect within a few years, this is well before Glasgow, I suspect there will be a global tax on carbon, and I suspect it will not be a couple of bucks, it will be more than that. And so there is a predictable cost if we do nothing and our footprint doesn't change. Using our footprint and the price per ton of what I anticipate will come, because it's already being used by many other companies, the cost will be big. So let's do something about that now, so that we don't have the big cost. We can feel better about it, this sort of radiant before and after as well, but here's the cost. What I haven't done yet is to start pricing and doing discounted cash flows for some of the other things that we want to achieve. What will be the cost of the investment? What is the opportunity cost? And so on. This is to come. This is coming. Because
a lot of companies still frame, the sustainability journey as a cost as opposed to an opportunity.
Oh, it's definitely an opportunity. And Richemont as a wealthy business, it's a high margin business. We have the resources to do this, and the products that we make as luxury goods makers, by definition, they are not necessary. They are not food or water or shelter. They are luxury. They are the highest aspirational things. Beautiful jewelry, beautiful watches, beautiful clothes, and we try to make things which are as timeless as possible. But if there was a problem tomorrow and people stopped buying, no one would weep for luxury except the luxury industry.
Right.
We would miss it. We know it's going to come back because it's human nature.
Mm-hmm.
But we, as an industry, we need to be exemplary because no one really needs us.
Mm-hmm.
People need to shelter. They need those other things. They don't need very high-end jewelry. They don't need exquisite watches. They want it, but they don't need it.
So I guess that would make me question, if it's something that is not needed, why does Richemont even care to go down the sustainability route? It's something that they don't necessarily, as you said, people don't necessarily need luxury goods. So why would you hold yourself to that standard?
I have three stakeholder groups that all expect us to do it. Investors, and there's a generational change taking place amongst our investor base as children inherit the investments of their parents and start to challenge what did mum and dad buy, what did grandma and grandma buy, and if that's my inheritance, do I want to keep this or do I want to change it? So we have an investor stakeholder group, and I'll come back to that. We have our own colleagues, 35,000 colleagues, who want to be proud of what they're doing and not feeling a little awkward. And there's a few industries who are not feeling good about what they do. And then our customers, of course. Our customers historically have just expected us to do the right thing. And there was a quiet agreement. They expect us to do it and we quietly do it. But they don't ask and we don't tell. We just did it with certification, always trying to find the green or gold option, that sort of thing. But if I come back to the investor topic, we have a controlling shareholder at Richemont with more than 50% of the vote. And his family have been involved in the World Wildlife Fund from day zero and continue to be involved in those things. They have a diversified portfolio. Richemont is part of it. And if we can get the next 50 years right as well, then Richemont will have a good future. So being family controlled but publicly listed gives us all the advantages and disadvantages you can think of. Mandatory disclosure on the one side and patient capital on the inside. That enables us to really think slow and take the capital allocation decisions which will put us in the right place for the future, for those shareholders, the patient shareholders, the family controlled shareholders, rather than the day traders. The day traders probably aren't so interested in sustainability. I would be surprised. It's a discussion around horizons. Our horizons are in the sort of 5, 25, 50-year horizon. A day trader, I think, is shorter.
24 hours, perhaps, yes. You just spoke about the future. Are you optimistic about the future?
I am.
Okay.
I am, especially after the Glasgow outcomes.
Okay.
We've seen a number of these COP meetings. Some have been ecstatically happy, like the Paris Agreement, and some have been disappointing, to use diplomatic languages. But the Glasgow meeting for me was a good result. There was plenty of good things came out of it. Compromises were found, solutions were explored, and the whole ratchet system that was embedded in the Paris Agreement seems to be working. So I'm not worried about carbon. This is a man-made problem, man-made solutions, not that difficult. Counting atoms, we're quite good at that. Not difficult. Nature is next. More difficult. Kunming, that's going on. But I'm overall positive about the future. Humans have understood the pickle they put themselves in, and exactly how to get out of that pickle can't be too difficult.
Okay. So
we know the water is, I'm mixing metaphors now, but we know the water is hot It's time to either get out of the water or change the temperature of the water.
Okay.
We're going to change the temperature of the water.
Okay, so you were optimistic after COP. So what
Yeah.
do you think is needed for bolder progress?
Even bolder.
Well, so COP resulted in
Yeah.
pledges and declarations and things like that. So what is needed to take those words into action?
It's transition finance. If today your energy structure, infrastructure is based on black or brown input, to move that from black and brown to green or blue, that's a transition. There's a cost. Who pays? These aren't really difficult questions. They're timing questions. We know what the end result looks like. The arguments have been around dates. Which decade will it be finished? Country by country. I'm quite positive. Everyone's agreed now on the problem. They've agreed on the solutions. If we don't put our money there, then goodness me, what better place could there be for our money than a safe future? You know, it's like fire insurance for your home. You never want to make a claim. You're happy to pay every year for the fire insurance. You never want to make a fire claim. And so that's really where the world is going. We have to pay a little more insurance and not burn the house down.
Okay. So you are optimistic about 2030. Do you think 2030 is achievable?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I'm wearing today the SDG pin. I'm optimistic. When I see the changes in the world, not just the negative things we read about in the news, but the long list of positive things in Asia, especially in Latin America, the reduction in poverty, living standards, education, health, it's all very, very positive. Africa is much more mixed and disappointing, but that can be, there's many reasons for it. But for most of the world, India, China, the progress made over the last decade has been stunning. It's come at a price for nature and some other geochemical pathways, but these are mechanical problems. They are about which fertilizer do you use and how. Well, you can change this. Which kind of energy do you use and how? These can be adapted and adjusted. There are transitions. We know the time scales, and we know most of the how. The only part of all of this that's blurry for most of the world is direct air capture of carbon. That seems to be the only part where there's not yet much consensus. But I'm seeing the world moving now to serious discussions again about nuclear, rolling out a nuclear fleet for energy after the accidents of the past, which has frozen capital. Now capital is coming back to that. That's that blue-green energy story. All of this is a long way away from watchmaking,
of course,
or jewelry making. We have wandered, but I'm very positive about the 2030 horizon, because these are the goals the world has set together. The 2030 will come and will go. Something else will take its place. But I'm positive about where we will be. The rate of change in the last decade, as I say, has been phenomenal. And there's a consensus to bring those benefits to an even wider population, but to do it in a less intrusive way, to work on coexisting with nature rather than fighting nature.
And what role does Richemont play in that? Or what role does Richemont see itself playing in this?
We have a number of roles to play. At an industry level, I'm leading a SDG task force. That's at an industry level. We have the Responsible Jewellery Council with 1,600 corporate members dedicated to certifying their practices and the supply chain of gold, diamonds, and other precious materials that go into our products. And I'm leading the task force dedicated to turning that industry firepower into something that's good for the SDGs and good for environment, social, and governance. So we're working on that now. We're about 1 year into that project. We interestingly, we're being advised by Georg Kell, who set up the Global Compact 20 years ago. He also set up the Principles for Responsible Investment and many other things. So he's one of the sort of a living treasure for sustainability, and he's been kind enough to be the advisor for this this cross-industry group. And then, of course, Global Compact is much broader. Richemont can play a useful role in that. I go and talk to whole trade associations in Switzerland and say, would you like to partner with us to bring your members onto the same path as Global Compact, which is aligning corporate goals with the United Nations, and the United Nations has the SDGs.
How is the industry, so fashion, luxury, watchmaking, so how are they contributing to a more sustainable society?
I look at that in two ways. We have changing our operating model and changing our business model. The operating model can focus on which materials do we buy to make our things, what sort of buildings, what sort of logistics. This is quite a granular approach to say, if we're not comfortable with, let's say, logistics, we're not comfortable with sending things by plane, what do we need to change to send things by ship instead? So catalogs, for example. So we can work on the operating model one topic at a time, looking at the environmental and social portrait of each part of our business, and then select the companies who we consider to use best practice because they're certified. So that's on the operating model, and we can try our best to be exemplary in that. And we have lots of tools for that. At a much higher level, there's the business model. Today, our own business is fundamentally linear. We take materials, we make something, and we sell it. In the future, the person who buys it, let's say it's you, you may keep that object for a very long time, 50 years, and then your children may inherit it from you. Is that linear or is it circular? I'm not sure. But we're doing a lot at Richemont to enable a circular economy where, let's say you buy a watch from one of the Richemont maisons or even another, and 10 years from now you may decide it's time to trade up. And we have now ways of doing that. We've bought businesses which specialize in circular economy, which is mostly around trust. There is no destruction of the watch, but you will have trust to sell it at a fair price, use the credit to buy something else, perhaps pre-owned or perhaps new, it's up to you. And it's not specific to Richemont names and brands. It could be any of our peers. And so the carbon intensity of our whole business will begin to change as we amplify that circular business model for watches, probably for jewelry, and already for clothing and handbags as well, through our e-commerce business, Yux Net-a-Porter. They've just done an agreement with Reflaunt, which is a specialist platform within the platform to enable circular activity. So you asked me what's Richemont doing to shape that future. We are preferring, on the operating model, we are preferring suppliers who get it, who understand what we're trying to do. Sometimes they're not always pleased that we have more questions, that's life. And then looking at our future business model. What's the source of our revenue? Where do we create jobs? How do we train people for that future?
I think normally the industry that you work in, they see their counterparts as competition, but for achieving SDGs or to become more sustainable, there has to be a nature of collaboration. So how are you collaborating within the industry, to see people as, not competitors, but, as collaborators to, move things forward in the industry?
We have, I'd say, two avenues that are industry level rather than Richemont or just Cartier, or the list of initiatives at the company level, it's long. At the Richemont level, we work closely with the Responsible Jewellery Council. This is the 1,600 members around good operating models and the Sustainable Development Goals agenda. So RJC is one avenue, and the other is the Fondation for High Watchmaking, Fondation de la Haute Horlogerie. They've been a little disrupted by COVID, of course, with no Geneva Watch Fair, but it's coming back in March, we hope. And they are putting sustainability more and more into the offering of that watch fair and what the members of that non-partisan fondation, it's about watchmaking in Switzerland and the culture and the values, and they're bringing sustainability truly into the core of their offer to their members as well. So Richemont's working with a certification scheme, RJC, and with a promotion scheme, FHH.
Now, through this entire interview, you've been very optimistic and positive about what is achievable. Is there anything that frustrates you?
Downtown traffic. Don't understand why people sit,
especially in Geneva,
downtown traffic. Yes. Don't get it. I'm too green to really understand the tipping point at which people will stop repeating a peculiar behavior. And I see that with myself around food, and I see it with other people stuck in traffic in downtown Geneva. Don't understand it.
Okay.
So human nature is what it is. Sometimes we recognize our own folly, and still we don't change.
But in terms of achieving sustainability initiatives, SDGs, there's nothing that frustrates you. You think that
I don't know if it frustrates me or if I just need to go through the process. It's hesitancy. Of course, we hear the word hesitancy a lot with vaccination. Hesitancy is a very human condition. It's the fear of the unknown, making a leap and trusting where you will land. So with a lot of the sustainability topics, the decarbonisation decisions, or starting to create a forward-looking agenda for the whole industry around the Sustainable Development Goals, those are new, unknown things, and I see a lot of hesitancy within parts of the industry, particularly with smaller companies who think, oh, this is more administration, this is more demands from our clients, whether the clients are end customers or business to business. So I see the hesitancy. I know my role is partly as an educator to explain the context, and partly as a persuader to say, you can hesitate all you like for a few years, and then you need to stop. Don't keep hesitating, please. You're not helping either of us.
Speaking of persuasion, so one of the things is, how is the Chief Sustainability Officer or Head of Sustainability, how is this role different than other roles within an organization, and what skills are needed?
So how is it different? First of all, it's new, and it's untested and unproven, and strangely enough, everyone thinks they're an expert. I've worked for a long time in finance and governance, and the only people who thought they were an expert were the experts. In sustainability, everyone has an opinion. Everyone wants to tell me about what they did or didn't do at the weekend with plastic or other things, or how guilty they feel about going on holiday. And I think, well, I need to do some bigger things here. So it's the novelty of the topic, the lack of training, the lack of qualifications is a difficult area for me to address, and I'm working on that. I've established a CSR faculty within Richemont. We partnered with the University of Cambridge to enable my colleagues to use their courses. In other ways that it's a little difficult is the reporting lines are very heterogeneous. I report to the finance director of the Richemont Group. He's my boss. in Cartier, the head of sustainability might be reporting to the chief executive, in another house to the marketing chief or the human resources. And people ask me, does it matter? And I say, I don't know, let's find out. Let's see, let's test the limits and see if the governance and the powers are right or not. How I've set things up at the headquarters is the CFO chairs my sustainability committee of management, and I have representatives from different specialist functions, human resources, supply chain, and so on. And we work in a collegial basis to work on those codes, those clubs, and those disclosures that I spoke of earlier. And I explain that to my colleagues elsewhere in the group and say, why not try and do the same? In that way, you have an ExCo member in the chair and someone at his or her right hand who does most of the work. So the CFO at Richemont chairs the management committee, and I do the rest. I run the agenda and so on. Sometimes at meetings, he'll say, good morning, everyone. Good to see you all. Matthew, take over. And then for the next 3 hours, I'll run the show. But it ensures that we have a good flow going up to the ExCo for any issues, and also the ExCo can set the agenda in the more general sense. Are we going fast? Are we going slow? That sort of thing. I spoke to you earlier about how I had retrained a number of times in my own career, and I'm looking to use the University of Cambridge for partnering on my CSR faculty. We also have a learning and development function within Richemont. We're large enough to have those that sort of knowledge management and training programs, and we're beginning to discuss how do we want to go on that spectrum from voluntary to mandatory. Where do we want to put sustainability know-how? And it's a very big topic. So do we want to train people specifically on carbon topics or human rights topics? And if so, voluntary, mandatory. I started in August this year a 1-year engagement program for 35,000 people. We called it, it's based on the movement for better luxury, and we called it the 12 movements. So each month there's a particular focus on one topic, environment or people, and so on. And so far so good. We're only a few months into it, but we're seeing my internal communication colleagues tell me we are on a maximum scale of 0 to 100. We're at 88 so far. So we're pleased. We're pleased.
What does success look like, or how will you gauge success either in your role and at Richemont?
Success for Richemont will be the achievement of our 2025 plan, the Movement for Better Luxury Part 1, let's call it. We have KPIs for all of our commitments and ownership. Let's see, did we achieve what we set out to do? We track it every 6 months. So most of the signals are green today, but the harder parts are yet to come. So we can say how many green flags did we reach by 2025? That's success at the Richemont Group level. At the personal level, I think if I can stay the course, it's very intense. I spend a long week at work, and on top I do a lot of other voluntary things, including Global Compact. I think the success will be if I am still on my feet in 5 years, still enjoying what I'm doing, still finding it intellectually, professionally, and rewarding for myself, and still using some of the old trades that I've learned and some new ones. I'm learning a lot in the last year about the importance of communication in leadership, which for my own personal history was not an issue. I used to be in finance and governance, and communication there was not really an issue. You prepare your report, you publish it, you're done. You maybe tell a couple of people it's out, but now sustainability, because everyone thinks they're an expert, I need to communicate much more and keep the guide rails on what are we doing and why, and what are we not doing and why.
And going even a level deeper than success. So what would you like your legacy to be?
The movement for better luxury.
Okay. That was very poignant. Anything else that you would like me to ask you that I didn't?
I'd like to see the professional services firms treating sustainability as a shared problem rather than a business opportunity as a firm. So that might involve setting up a pool of secondments or something like that, but really this is good for Switzerland and good for the world. It shouldn't really be a pricing and negotiation story. So it could be that there's a way to create a foundation together or something radically different that would enable people to move around in this topic and feel more comfortable with the complexity of the topic, and then take that knowledge back to their regular work, but with a different mindset. It's not about Monday to Friday, and it's not about getting paid. It's something far deeper than that. Coexisting with nature. How do we do that?
Right.
It's difficult. We've done a bad job so far.
We have.
So we need to change that. And it's not going to be through a 1-month consultancy. Something much bigger and much more ambitious. So the challenge is there for Deloitte and all the other partners in Switzerland, whether it's a professional services firm, banking, watchmakers, to really come together and find a new way of working together.
Taking that long-term view
Very
as
long,
opposed,
very long.
extremely long.
You know, business planning is usually, unless you're in the building business, it's usually a maximum 5 years. That gets different when you start to talk about training and education. You start to look about return on investment over a 5 to 10 year period. Sustainability begins at 10 years and goes out much further. So that means that return on investment is the wrong kind of language.
Right.
Something else is needed.
So it's sort of a collaborative ecosystem where
Yes.
we're all working together
said.
towards the greater good.
Collaborative ecosystem is a lovely term. Thank you for that.
Okay, good.
You've understood me.
I have understood you. Well, thank you, Matthew, so much for your time and for sharing your thoughts on your role as the head of sustainability at Richemont. We wish you all the best in your role, and we look forward to seeing your success and Richemont's success as well.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me today.
Thank you.